Well, thanks so much for staying with us here on 13 WMAZ Plus. We'll be around the clock providing you with updates with everything you need to know about this incoming winter weather. But we also have some severe weather to break down. So if we can pop it over to our other graphics computer real quick, that's the one I'm going to be working off of, and we'll go over your current conditions. We're going to talk about everything from future view to the watches and the warnings that we're currently seeing. So if we can get production to pop up the Max 2 box over here behind me, and that's going to give us a view of the sky cam all behind me. But overall, to start your Saturday, it has been a relatively quiet start to the day. It's overcast. It is going to be mainly in the form of some dry weather. So we are looking at no real impacts until we get into the nighttime hours tonight. You just heard them talking about it with the EMA conference right there. Right now we're popping over to Carmen real quick and just get the graphic Max 2 graphics behind me if we can, production. So right now we are going to be talking about those winter weather impacts as we go into really tonight into tomorrow morning. So if you have any last minute preparations that you need to do in the form of maybe going to grab some extra groceries, running some extra errands, now is going to be the time to do so. While it is still going to be dry outside, it is just going to be gloomy. It is just going to be chilly. Right now, you can see this weather impact alert is going to get going later tonight. And we do have the onset possibility of maybe as early as 8 p.m. We could start to see some of the rain moving in, transition into more so of a wintry mix, but it's mainly going to be overnight into tomorrow morning. Then tomorrow afternoon, you are going to notice that thunderstorm icon. Yes, we do have the potential for seeing some storms in the forecast as we go into tomorrow afternoon. So it's a bit of a double whammy in terms of your forecast. First and foremost, going to finally take it around the quad right here where it is a gloomy atmosphere. Like I mentioned, really staying dry as of right now, not really looking at anything in the way of precipitation. All the active weather is going to be farther over to the south or farther over to the northwest of me. So we continue to have a couple of graphics issues right here. I think we finally got it figured out right now. So here we go. Thanks for sticking with me through the technical difficulties. Mid to upper 40s farther to the north. As you go down to the south, some low 50s. Not too much of a temperature difference, but this will be a common theme that we do see as we go throughout the rest of today, especially as we go into tomorrow afternoon. So here's a look at your temperatures, some staggering values that I have not seen so far in a long time. 1 degree over in Amarillo, 8 degrees in Oklahoma City, 3 in Wichita, 0 over in Kansas City. So it is much colder to the north. And these areas farther to the north are the ones that are going to see consistent snow showers throughout today. And also we are seeing an uptick in the winds. The winds are going to be a factor throughout each of the next probably 2 to 3 days. We're actually looking at some gusty winds even to linger into the beginning of next week. But right now, even sustained winds up to 20 miles per hour down in Cochrane. Occasional gusts that can pop up into the upper teens, of course, above 20 miles per hour. It is a windy and a gloomy day so far that is settling in for your Saturday. So we might see a light shower or two all throughout today, but overall, like I mentioned, today going to be on the drier side. 50 degrees is kind of a middle ground high temperature. Areas to the north are not going to reach 50 degrees. Areas farther down to the south are going to be a little bit warmer than this. And as we go hour by hour, you will see that we'll hit our high temperature pretty early in the afternoon, but the temperature decline is actually going to begin as we go into the late afternoon hours, around 3 to 4, maybe 5 o'clock. And as we dip down into the 40s, we're forecasted to continue that temperature drop to around freezing temperature, even below freezing temperature as we wake up and walk out the door for your Sunday morning. Satellite and radar, all quiet besides cloud cover all across central Georgia right now. Let's take it up to northern Georgia, which they did have a more widespread wintry mix earlier. Now it does look like we are kind of seeing some of that wintry mix, maybe some sleet or some freezing rain showers transitioning into a little bit of rain right there around Chattanooga. But northwest Georgia, just to the northwest of Dalton, over to Dahlonega, getting into Toccoa, that's where we still have a little bit of a wintry mix that is on the horizon. And the northern portion of the state, seeing the onset of those impacts a bit earlier than the rest of northern Georgia and then eventually central Georgia. So here's a look at the entire southeast corner of the United States where that wintry mix and the snow showers are going to be present. Northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, getting into western Tennessee. And this is all a part of a much larger winter weather system. So what's happening is an atmospheric river, which is just pulling moisture from, believe it or not, the Pacific coast of Mexico and California. It is pulling that moisture all the way across the southern half of the United States. And basically these atmospheric rivers, they normally occur more so just on the west coast, but this is a large scale system to where we just have the perfect amount of features that are coming in to pull that moisture all the way across to the eastern coast of the United States. But if we take away the cloud cover and we start to look at some of the impacts in the form of snow, we are looking at the impact spanning from west to east over a 1,500 mile span, almost 1,600 miles. We even have a couple of light flurry showers already in south central Virginia, getting closer over to Maryland and Washington, D.C. As far back over to the west is areas of New Mexico, maybe even a few flurry showers that I'm not quite sure are associated with this system. That may more so be in the kind of foothills of the mountains in northwestern Arizona. But from north to south, we can see that the snow is all the way up into areas of northern Missouri, getting into southern Iowa, north central Illinois, and you go all the way down to the end of this wintry mix. It is a little bit farther to the north than when I first drew this, but the northern half of Louisiana, roughly 600 miles from north to south, that we are seeing some form of winter weather here on the satellite and radar image. So here's a look at your winter weather alerts, which I'm going to go ahead and actually drag this back to the beginning. Forgot to throw a pause point there. This is going to get started at 1 p.m. this afternoon. So we're not really going to see the onset of impacts that early, but I did want to highlight how long we will be in this winter weather advisory. That will go until 10 a.m. on Monday. So that's why we continue to have that weather impact alert go all the way into the beginning of next week. Northernmost counties included in this winter weather advisory: Washington, Hancock, Baldwin, Putnam, Jasper, Jones, over to Monroe, Lamar, Pike, Spalding, and Butts counties are all included in that winter weather advisory, which is not as bad as the ice storm warning that you do see in the deep purple color. Areas in this type of warning do have the potential for ice accumulation of 1/4 of an inch all the way to an inch in some localized spots. And it is very, very widespread, not only northern Georgia, but upstate South Carolina, western North Carolina, back up into portions of east central Tennessee. It is looking like there are going to be much more drastic impacts in these areas in the purple color, as opposed to kind of this lighter shade that we do see for the winter weather advisory. Now in central Georgia, we're really just looking at ice accumulations up to only about 1/4 of an inch. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but it only takes that amount of ice in order to have some implications for hazardous road conditions and, of course, down trees and power lines, which is kind of the most concern that we do have. But obviously continuing to emphasize the fact that you need to stay off the roads when we are looking at these specific impacts. But then we go into Sunday afternoon, and it's a complete flip of the severe weather risk. Northernmost counties, you guys are going to be the only one that see anything in the way of potential winter weather. Down to the south and the southwest, however, we have a low-end level 1 out of 5 risk for some potentially strong to maybe even severe weather, as this line of rain that comes through on Sunday afternoon is going to encounter a much warmer and a much more humid air mass in these green shaded areas. So the potential threats we're looking at are a thunderstorm that could have its fair share of gusty winds, maybe 40 to 50, possibly even up to 60 miles per hour if we are to get a severe warning. And we do have the highlighted risk of a brief spin-up tornado. That is typically what we see in these level 1 risks. However, we will talk about the potential for that as we get into a couple of your future view graphics. But the biggest thing I want to harp on you right now is know what county you live in. Here's a map of all your counties here in central Georgia, and we do have a couple of border counties that I get a lot of questions about. I actually just responded to someone on Facebook from Lamar County. Not technically in our viewing area here in central Georgia, but we do like to talk about some of our border counties that are maybe covered by the Atlanta DMA, that are maybe covered over by Columbus, maybe even covered by Savannah. So all these labels, obviously you can read them for yourself. So when we're talking about certain counties, know which one that you live in. Lamar County going to be right here, just to the west of Monroe County. Then we'll have Pike County, one county to the west of Lamar County. Spalding County right here on the western side of I-75. This is going to encompass Griffin. As a matter of fact, Pike County encompasses Zebulon. And then Lamar County is going to encompass Barnesville. Butts County up here, that is Jackson, Georgia, and Indian Springs State Park, which you will very likely see a couple of our reporters going live at over the course of the next 24 to 36 hours. And then we go down here where another label that we're missing right now is Montgomery County. One county to the east of that, that is going to be Toombs County, where Vidalia is. So Montgomery is going to be more so Mount Vernon, and then Toombs County is going to encompass Vidalia. Those are about all the counties that we typically cover on a daily basis. But of course, some other counties that are on our border, like Greene, Morgan counties, right there around the Lake Oconee area, maybe getting up into Madison. that is going to be in the ice storm warning. So once you get up to the I-20 corridor just to the north of central Georgia, that's where your ice storm warning is going to begin. So we're right on the edge of that. And obviously with the implications we could have for some of our northernmost counties. That's why we continue to cover this all throughout today, all throughout tomorrow, and into Monday morning, as long as we need to cover it. Just because you don't see some winter weather impacts doesn't mean that other areas of central Georgia aren't going to see those. We cover a very wide area of nearly 30 counties. We want anyone in the affected area to be informed about what is going on. So just because you're not getting anything in the way of winter weather, don't go on social media saying, oh, we're not getting anything but cold rain. We're going to tell you which areas are going to get cold rain, maybe even some warm rain, but there's a whole lot to break down, and it's going to be a different forecast depending on where you do live. So here's a look at future views, zoomed in with a couple of temperatures where we can see as we head into the evening hours, we finally dip down from those mid and upper 40s down into the 30s. And then as early as around 8 p.m. is the earliest time that we could see the potential wintry mix getting going. It looks like closer to 10 p.m. is when some of our northernmost counties are starting to see those numbers drop closer to freezing temperature, and the rain that's moving in transitions into more of a wintry mix, that pink shade going down farther to the south and the southwest. But once again, it's only in these areas around 32 degrees, maybe just slightly above it. If we do have some surface temperatures that are just above freezing temperature, then that is going to result in maybe not a cold enough surface to lead to anything in the way of a wintry mix variety. Things will probably very likely melt once they reach the surface. But once you get to 32 or below, that's going to contribute to a lot of sticking of that precipitation. So some may fall more so of the solid form, maybe snowflakes a little bit higher up in the atmosphere, start to maybe melt as it gets closer to the surface, maybe refreeze. It's going to go through a bunch of different changes of phase as it goes into from higher up in the atmosphere all the way down to the surface. So here's a look at future view. Till 3 a.m., that's when we're really expecting the most widespread impacts in the way of that mix of freezing rain, maybe even some sleet continuing into the early morning hours in our northernmost counties. Then we are forecasted around 9 a.m. to finally break back above that 32-degree mark. But it's not going to get too warm in some areas as we go into tomorrow afternoon. Take a look at this temperature difference. 36 degrees in Eatonton, 65 degrees all the way down in Cordele. So tomorrow afternoon, that's where the warmer and more humid air mass starts to surge from farther up to the north, but the wedge is still pretty prominent up in north and northeast central Georgia. So this line of moisture that will be moving through, obviously none of these numbers are going to be cold enough to produce anything of the frozen precipitation nature. So it's going to come through, encounter some slightly warmer air, but farther down to the south and the southwest where the temperatures are warmer, there's more moisture in the forecast. That's where we are going to have the potential for maybe some strong to even severe weather. So the timing of that going to start around 1 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow and go all the way until around 6 to 7 p.m. This residual rain on the backside of that leading edge isn't as heavy in nature. The main impacts are really going to come from the beginning of that squall line, and it's probably going to last hopefully only about maybe 15-20 minutes as that leading edge makes its way through. You will have some rain on the backside, but that's not going to be as heavy in nature. Then we go into Sunday night. So finally all the rain is out of here at 11 p.m. Sun is already set. The clouds are continuing to be very widespread. So we're not going to have any windows of sunshine tomorrow to lead to maybe some evaporation of water that's still standing at the surface. And we are forecasted to drop back below freezing temperature far and wide for a good period of about 4 to 5 hours on Monday morning. That could result in the freezing over of any standing bodies of water that we continue to have as we go into the near future on Monday morning. But first things first, let's talk about the severity of impacts very quickly. I'm going to go ahead and drag it over here where you heard a lot of those EMA officials in that conference that we were taking a live stream of issuing the highest kind of language, and the highest impacts are going to be up here in the northeastern quadrant of the state of Georgia. But as you go into northern central Georgia, anywhere from Macon on up to the north has the potential for at least a light glaze of potential ice to maybe even about 1/4 of an inch of ice. And taking a look at your ice accumulation impacts right here, as we get to about 1/4 of an inch of ice right here, that's where things become problematic. So if you have more than that, obviously that is going to be even more reason to stay off the roads, make sure that you're staying inside. Very thankfully, we are not talking about anything in the way of potential long-lasting power outages, or we're not talking about anything in the way of maybe some road conditions that are going to be very bad as we linger into the beginning of next week, but we could still have some slick spots. All in all, it's kind of a two-sided sword. We have the winter weather risk for northern central Georgia, again, Macon northward, and then as we go into tomorrow afternoon, south central Georgia has the potential for some of those strong to maybe even severe storms where we could even see the refreezing over of standing bodies of water into your Monday morning. So like I said, we're here all around the clock. It's a team effort. We will continue to keep you updated at the top of each and every hour with the latest updates with your forecast. Carmen?
Now you can continue watching the radar 24/7 as winter weather moves into central Georgia. Just scan the QR code on your screen that you see there and stay up to the moment with current conditions as winter weather moves into our area. You can stay with us on 13 WMAZ Plus all day today for continuous storm updates.